Good evening. Welcome to the Commission on Disabilities meeting on Tuesday, May 9th. Please stand and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, under God, and justice for all. If you could please just silence all cell phones and electronic devices.
Okay. Roll call of the members. Ralph DeCicco.
Here.
David Hahesy.
Here.
Paul Mazzone.
Here.
Brian Arciero. Not here. Enza Goodwin.
Here.
Michelle DeBellis.
Here.
Harvey Corin. It's not present. All right. So item number 1 on the agenda, if you want to take it away.
Sure. Item number 1 is a continuation and update and discussion regarding Commission Member Mr. Harvey Corin from our April meeting. I will start the process. After that meeting, I know Paul Mazzone, Commissioner Paul Mazzone was trying to get in contact with Commissioner Mr. Corin, and actually we did one day, both of us together, and we did discuss it with him. He presently is, well, not presently, but I believe he's unable to drive anymore. His wishes were, if with the permission of the Commission on Disabilities, he does want to stay on the commission to be able to access the meetings and be on the phone. So we'll basically open that up for discussion and see what people's feelings are on that. And see what everybody's thoughts on that. And we had an initial discussion at our first meeting, what we were looking for from this commission. So if we can elaborate on that, if anybody has any feelings and thoughts on that, be greatly appreciated. If you want, I could have Paul, if you want to talk on it first, because you initiated the contact with him with me. I would greatly appreciate it.
I've known Mr. Corin many, many years, and he's always been a dedicated individual. Harvey, unfortunately, physically can't drive any longer, and it's very difficult for him to make meetings. I know he serves on another board within the city, and they, at that point, I don't know what the exact law is, but they voted for a telephonic vote that if the board sees fit, by implementing that, you would have to, we could contact him by phone. We are televised. He'd hear everything going on, and he'd have to make a vote up or down on whatever the issue may be at that point. We're all in an awkward position with Harvey. He's got more time than God knows who in the city, and he's always dedicated himself to helping people. And I, for one, I'd go along with helping him and give us the opportunity. He's a wise person. He's lived it, he's done it, and he's doing it to keep us all abreast of different facets of what's going on the disability end.
I'd have no issue with that from a sort of logistical standpoint, as long as we have a phone in here, which, I don't know, is there, or we could talk with the clerk's office and we'll get one set up. No, you said he's on another board and they do telephone access. Do they meet in here? Okay, and how does that work? Okay. Right. Okay, and so they have one here. Is there a phone up on that? Leave it up to you guys, but as long as
anybody else have any comments on that?
I just think that if he has served
here for a long time, and if he served really well, and if he served on other boards, and if we are allowed to do that on other boards, and we have the ability to do so. If the man obviously has a lot of experience and he can serve valuably on the commission, I think we ought to give him a chance and have him stay. He probably has a great deal to offer us, and if he can do it by phone, I think we should allow him to do so.
Does anyone object?
Yeah.
My only other question on it, is it possible to get an additional member on the board? So if he can't physically be here to assist us at the meetings or to help us out in the field, if you will, is there any way to get an additional member on the board?
So the actual commission is full. It's a 7-member commission, but there are people that have expressed interest in volunteering and getting involved, and I don't see anything that would preclude them from doing that just because they're not, sworn members of the commission. But that, how that's going to evolve is kind of going to be up to our chairman and the rest of you.
Anybody else?
I'd like to just say, like Enza, I guess my only thought process is, I think it would be a great idea, yes, if we could do that, but at the same time, I feel like maybe a board member needs to be here for reasons like that. There are going to be, some type of things that come up or things that we do outside of here, that it might be good to have an actual board member. That's just my thought process.
Mr. Chairman, it's not that I disagree with either of the two ladies to my side, but that's exactly what he is. He would be a board member, he'd be a voting board member, and he'd be listening. A contact would be made between the chairman to him at the outset of the meeting. We'd all know that he is online. He'd be watching it on TV and listening to what's going on. And the chairman and he, when the vote, if a vote were to come on a particular item, he'd vote it up or down and would be told, would know what he's voting. So it isn't that he's not physically here, which he isn't, but he is here.
But I thought the role of the commission as it became revitalized was so that there'd be more active participation aside from just a monthly meeting.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where she was going with that,
Yeah.
which is I understand, although I think that.
Well, let me make a comment on that. I agree both ways. But my thoughts is part of my statement when we first put this commission back together, and I appreciate anybody and everybody that can help on this commission. But one of my main goals was this commission was to not only have members on the commission that could just meet once a month for our meetings, but once we did establish the office, hopefully soon, and be able to outreach into the field, I just don't know where that would be in the process. I understand he has great knowledge, and I'm willing to accept that he is a great asset for that knowledge for this commission. But on the same token, it did take us a while to get in contact with him to find this answer, and I'm just afraid that may happen, and he could be a liaison for us and not have to be on the commission as a member of the commission, but can be an asset for the commission. Either way, there's a valid point on both ways. So I do understand it, and I do not, my will is not to take somebody off of the commission, but as of the point that our first meeting, that I was looking for people that could do more than just meet once a month for our meetings. So it's a tough situation.
Would it be fair then to maybe suggest that we that we give him a chance to do it this way? for a while to see how that would work for maybe a month or two.
I think that's reasonable, because there's nothing preventing people who are not members of the commission from getting involved, from volunteering, from coming to the office, from coming to events. I believe and hope fervently that there's lots of people out there that want to be involved with this type of work. And also the other two things I'd point out, three things. First of all, we should probably wrap this up, because there's a full agenda, and I don't think necessarily all the people watching at home want to hear us talk about whether someone's going to continue to serve on the commission. I would say that if there's one commission that we should probably be particularly accommodating, if people need to dial into, it's probably this one, for obvious reasons. And then the other thing I would say is he is on the commission, so he would have to be actively removed. And I personally, just speaking for myself, I'd find it a little uncomfortable to do that. If someone's willing to continue to serve, I would feel uncomfortable, with the commission voting to remove him. But that's just me. You do whatever you'd like.
Those are my feelings exactly, and I think we should give him a chance to try it this way and see how it works out. And if it doesn't work out, if it's intolerable, and I think that then that's the time to do it. It's particularly distasteful to me to do something like that to him at this time. As you say, it is the Disability Commission, and to throw someone off because they're disabled right now, I think we ought to give them a chance.
I would agree. So does anyone want to put that up?
I'll make a motion that that's what we do. We keep them on for a few months and see how that works, and hopefully it will work out well, and then we revisit this maybe in 2 or 3 months.
Okay. All in favor? All opposed?
Just want to make an amendment to that he would need to reach out to us and give us his contact information so that we know where we would be dialing in.
Yeah, obviously we'll have to make arrangements before the next meeting that we get him on the line and everything. So we'll have a conversation separately with him before the next meeting, make sure he's ready to go. Okay, so you just note that for the record and move on to the next agenda item.
The next item is the Revere Beach access for people with disabilities discussion, and this could be twofold. I know, Joe, you've had some contact with state delegation, and I believe that the co-chair may have also had some contact.
I can just say that, from my conversations, I spoke with, staff from Representative Vincent's office, and I know that DCR says they have the one mat that's out over by the Satter House, and what we're trying to find out is how much that cost, and whether it would be feasible or possible to get another one installed down the other side, maybe over by the bandstand or something like that. I'm not sure if you had any further conversations, David, but that's where I had left it, that we were going to try to get that information from DCR.
Yes, the last time I spoke with you, you had said that you were dealing with the state delegation, and it was okay if I reached out to the contacts that I had when I had worked with the people from DCR when we talked about Sullivan Field, and they had talked about changing that work, taking that over and making that into a maintenance facility. So I did reach out to the people that I had worked with at that time. I talked to Andy Bachman, who is the, let's see what his title is. He's the regional director there, and he gave me the name of a Tom McCarthy, who's the he's the DCI's director of Universal Access Program, whom Andy told me that I should reach out to him. I have not been able to get in touch with him. I just got his name, as a matter of fact, this evening. So I was going to try to reach out to him tomorrow and see. Andy told me he'd be a really good contact for us and thought he'd be able to help us do something with access to the beach. So I'll probably have more news tomorrow. I'll get in touch with you tomorrow, Joe, and let you know how I make out, and I'll have a good report for us on next month. But I do think he'll be a real good person for us to stay in touch with, if that's okay. If we don't want to keep her, in concert with the people from the state delegation, but I do think, working directly with the DCI might be helpful as well.
For sure. And just to make sure that I understand correctly, so my understanding is the one that we have that's down there now doesn't go all the way to the hard packed sand. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. It only goes down.
So that's the other thing that we're kind of asking about, is for that to be extended, so that it does go down to the hard packed sand.
Yes, and I'd like to see if we can get some more, there are the handicap parking signs all through, along the beach, and that's what I talked to Andy about, and seeing different access points where I'd like to see a few more. And there was some issue about the raking and things like that, and I talked to him about that. And, you know, the more conversations I have with this Mr. McCarthy, I think we'll have a clearer idea. And, you know, I did speak to Rosalie about that too. She does live in the same building as I do, and asked her if she could help out too. So, and I have not talked to her since then. You've probably had more conversation with her than I have.
Yeah. Okay. This is something that's going to continue to be, you know, something that the commission's working on. Not quite the peak beach season yet, but we're getting there, and you know, hopefully we can work with DCR to make the beach more accessible this summer.
Just wanted to make one comment on that, because there has been some articles in the paper with people looking for Revere to do something. I just wanted to make it known that this is DCR property, and we do have to go through the proper channels, and the city of Revere is trying to work with the state delegation. So the beach is state property, so we are trying to work along with them, just to let people know for the edification of some of the articles that have been in the local papers.
Any other comments on this topic? Okay, what's the next?
The next item is the update regarding Commission on Disabilities State ADA Planning Grant application, and I have someone who's been assisting us, Julie DeMauro, if she would come up and speak on this.
Hello, Julie DeMauro, Active Living Coordinator for the City of Revere. I'm just going to give you a brief update about this grant that I've been working with Ralph and with Dave. We are looking to apply for a planning grant to bring the city into full compliance with the Title II ADA requirements. I was contacted by Ralph and the mayor's office to work with them. We are looking to apply for a grant with the state that will help us bring the city into full compliance in terms of designation of a responsible employee, notice of ADA requirements, and then publish grievance procedures. Those three things we have in place already. The last two things will be the self-awareness and transition plan. Once we establish all 5 of these items, we'll be able to, or this commission will be able to apply for larger grants for planning and projects that would create better accessibility for all people who are mobility assisted. It would also refer to communication pieces within public buildings. We are seeking an amount of $125,000 from the state planning grant. We are currently getting ready to execute to write the grant within the next couple of weeks. So if there's anything that the commission would like to add for this grant, please let us know so that we can put it in full writing. Anybody have any questions about the next steps here?
Thank you, Julie. Joe, do we know if we have any insight on what the city's concerns are, or?
So it's a conversation that I plan on having with the mayor, and then I'll circle back with all of you and with Julie to put together a game plan moving forward.
Okay.
Julie, quick question. You said you guys are applying for the grant for $125,000. Is it an all or nothing type of grant? So if we couldn't get the full amount, could we get some, or?
So I think that we are pretty confident that if the $125,000 will, if we apply for it, that would be the amount that they would give to us. And we're looking to use that funding to help satisfy those last 2 requirements in Title II, which is the self-awareness as well as the transition plan. But then we also are going to put in some sort of like training and workshops for this commission right here, because we as a city are also beginning to get a lot of requests. I don't want to say complaints, because they're really not complaints, but they're just more advisory roles from the people in the community who may be suffering from some type of disability in terms of like traffic calming conditions, the way the lights are set up, ramps for people who are visually impaired. So that's also being kept on a database. So we're hoping that we can use that information as well, and some of the money from the planning grant. And how do we address that? How do we look at that? How do we track it? What are some of the things that we can do short term to fix those items? And then in terms of long-term planning, how do we incorporate that in the long-term planning? At this point, we have been working with the mayor's office on anything that comes in. We're also working with community development. There is going to be some changes to some of the lights on Broadway based off of some of the requests that we have gotten so far from some of the families whose children actually access that light but are mobility assisted. So we're going to hope to use the money for a variety of things, not just for satisfying these last two regulations.
Anyone else have any questions? Thank you, Julie.
Okay, next item.
Next item on the agenda is item number 4. It's an update regarding the Brookline Regional Commission on Disabilities meeting, which was Tuesday, April 25th, and was attended by co-chair David Hahesy, and he's going to speak briefly and let us know what the meeting was all about.
Okay, I did attend the conference on with the local disability chairman on the 25th in Brookline. It was really very interesting to me. It was the first conference that I had attended like that. So I really kind of sat back and watched more than anything, but it was very interesting. There were probably about 25 of us. It was really very interesting to see what the other commissioners were doing. And a lot of it is things that we're just starting to do. They talked a lot about collaborating with the different agencies locally, the kind of things that we're starting to do. Like I'm trying to begin with the Mystic Valley Elder Services and the adult family day. Where are we? Sorry, lost my thing. The adult family care services that I've been talking to lately. They both spoke here at last month's meeting. They also talked. Some of them are doing routine columns in the local newspapers and things like that. A couple of them are doing different sorts of things for fundraising and other items like that. So I have those people's names that I've been in touch with to see the types of things that they're doing and how they're working out with that. So I learned quite a bit at it, and I came back pretty excited about it. So we'll probably start to see those kinds of things as I talk more to those people. So it was a very interesting thing for me to do, and a way for me to spend some time, and I've spent a lot of time talking to those people since then. So hopefully, I think I came back having learned quite a bit. I talked to Joe after I did, and like Joe said, it's baby steps. So I'm learning, and I think I learned a lot. So I think this commission will gain from me having been there, and like I said, it is baby steps, and it was a time well spent for me.
And I would just say this goes for any work that we do in the city, but we always want to know what best practices are from what other communities are doing. So anything you see, anything that you see other communities doing, please bring it to our attention, both the chairs and the mayor's office, and we're happy to look into anything other cities or towns are doing if it's working.
Yeah, can't help but help us to see what they're doing. And like I said, we're just starting up, and it was very exciting, and it was very helpful to us. I think it was good for the state to see us getting involved like we should be.
Excellent. Anything else on this? All right, so what's next?
Next on the agenda is item number 5, and it's an update of city events for May, and Chairwoman Enza Goodman will speak on that.
So we wrapped up our 6-week session of Special Olympics on April 29th, and our 10 young athletes enjoyed a closing ceremony, which included the police department coming and handing out certificates, as well as cheering the young athletes on. The young athletes also received prizes, as well as the families enjoyed a luncheon at the end. The feedback that we got from volunteers and from the families of the young athletes is that they want to have another session of Special Olympics again. So we're hoping in the fall to be able to run another 6 to 8 week session. And then, as folks at home may know, Jen Duggan and myself developed an April Autism Awareness Calendar that was supported by the mayor's office, as well as different businesses and agencies across the city. We were able to offer 22 events. 17 of them were free. And we felt that that was a huge success for our special needs community. All were welcome to come, and the events took place. Some were indoors, some were outside, and we hope to continue that. That's part of our next steps beyond the April calendar, is to maybe incorporate some of these events in the coming months. So maybe not a full-blown monthly calendar, but maybe once a week or once every couple weeks, to give kids and their families an opportunity to expose themselves to things that they normally wouldn't have access to. Let's see. And then finally, our Monday night drop and stay playgroup is still taking place at the Revere Rec. That takes place on Monday nights from 6 to 7:30. Children with special needs and their families are welcome to come. We provide a snack and a drink. Our concern is that sometime this summer we may be without a location because of different events that do take place at the rec. So we are hoping, if anybody's watching this meeting, they will consider hosting us for 6 to 8 weeks during the summer. Again, it meets once a week, and we're looking for maybe an hour to an hour and a half that children and their families can come to and play safely indoors. And then finally, the next SEPAC meeting will be taking place on May 24th at 6 o'clock at the Revere League for Special Needs.
Just a quick question. What time on Mondays are you looking to have this event hosted?
So currently, we run from 6 to 7:30. That's an ideal time because most of the parents work, so it gives them enough time to come home, have a dinner, and then head out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody have any questions on any of the events? Okay, we can move on to item number 6. And this was going to be a presentation by Elle Baker from Revere on the Move neighborhood organizations regarding the ADA accessible garden beds at the new Gibson Park Community Garden. Unfortunately, she had a conflict in her meetings, but she had sent me some bullet points on it that I can discuss on it. What it basically is there is a new garden, community garden that's going in at Ward 5 at Gibson Park. What it is, it's between Riverside and the Point of Pines. There are going to be 15 ground level garden beds along with 3 handicap accessible beds. Each group of garden beds will be a separate lottery. The lottery was going to be held on May 11th. If anyone's interested, they can email their name and address and phone number to ebaker@revere.org. If you also have any questions or concerns, you can email her at ebaker@revere.org, or you can contact her at 781-286-8188. And this is a great opportunity for people who would need accessible beds that would not be able to do it in the older style beds that were at ground level. There is a whole design that they have that you'd probably be able to email you so you can take a look at it. But I'm not sure if all 3 were going to be ready at this point. I don't know if Julie, if you knew anything on that. Sorry to call on you, but I saw you were sitting there.
That's okay. That's why I stayed. I didn't know if you needed me to comment on that. I do know that the beds are done. I do know that the soil was dropped off. I do believe that it should be ready pretty soon, but that's as far as I know. I know that they have been completed.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Anybody have any questions on that? And how it is going to be? It'll be a lottery if more than 3 applicants apply for it. She had asked for my input on the application, and then I had reached out to the town of Arlington, Magnolia Park, who had accessible beds to get some ideas on how they were doing it, along with reaching out to Jeff Dugan from the state MOD. So we did find some background information if we did need to go into a lottery process.
Great. Any other questions on that? Or great. Well, thank you to everyone at Revere on the Move for not only bringing another great community garden to the city, but also making sure that it has accessible beds. Looking forward to that coming to fruition.
Okay.
All right. What's next?
Item 7 was communications. We had sent out a communication to the Traffic Commission after our April meeting. I'm not sure if anyone had a copy of it to read into the record.
I don't know if anyone had it. I can summarize it if you don't have it.
Yeah, if you wanted to summarize it.
So essentially, and we discussed this at the last meeting, but it was passed unanimously by the commission here that, so there are 6 streets in the city ordinances that permit parking of 2 wheels on the sidewalk, which contradicts ADA law, which says that you can't do that. The commission sent a letter to the Traffic Commission asking them to just open that up for discussion, not necessarily recommending a specific action on it, but just putting it up for discussion. So I am not sure if it's on the Traffic Commission's agenda for Thursday, because I know they're meeting this Thursday, but it should be in one of the upcoming meetings. They're going to have a public forum and have a conversation about that, since it's something that needs to be addressed.
Don't think there's any other communications that have come in, so we could move on to late items. I have one late item that I received yesterday from regarding the 911 disability indicator form for landline customers that was sent from the regionalization for the 911 that they want to try and start implementing. What it is it's basically a form that would be filled out for any of our, I have a copy of any of our disability citizens in Revere, that they would fill out from their home phone number. And basically what this would do is it would let people know what their disability is in case of an emergency and they do contact 911 and they do need assistance, and 911 facilitates someone to their residence and they are not able to access the door through the front door. They know what the resident issue is behind the door, so they will be able to have access there. What would happen is I have downloaded this to our disabilities page on the city's website that has, it's just a 2-page form that basically explains it, but it also has the Commission on Disabilities phone number if you have any questions or concerns. And it also has the address for where to mail it back for the Commission on Disabilities, and then we would send this into the state. It's basically an intake form, and it's basically to benefit the residents and citizens of Revere that have any kind of a disability. It will greatly help out. It's similar to what some communities also expanded on this, and they have something called a lockbox. That what it is there is some sort of a safety, I would call it like a safety deposit box that's outside the residence, that a key is in for people with disabilities, so that a door would not have to get knocked in, and the only people that have it would be like the fire or the police department. But this is the first step of doing it so that they know what is at that location. So I don't know if anyone has any questions or concerns on it. Joe, I don't know if I think you may have also gotten the email from Jim on this, so I was in communication. They were going to try and send someone up tonight, but if not, I told them I would just briefly describe it.
Yeah, and we'll make sure all the information about this is on the Disabilities Commission website, and if possible, we'd like to bring them in for the next meeting so we can try to work on that. I know it's just something that makes 911 dispatch's job a little easier if they know, where folks are that have certain accessibility needs. So I would urge anyone to spread the word about this. And, you know, if you have a certain accessibility need that 911 dispatch should know about, to make sure this gets filled out.
Anyone have any questions on it?
So I have one other item that I'd like to add if no one else does, is just a quick update. I know we've gotten a couple calls, and I know, you know, you guys have probably gotten them about the status of having a physical office space. For real this time, I feel like we're very, very close to being able to announce something. So I know we've had a couple false starts where it looked like we were pretty close to having a location, and then it fell through. While we're not publicly ready to announce it yet, I feel pretty confident that by the time we have the next meeting, we will have a home for this office and some hours that people can come in and talk about their concerns, have the phone answered live, all that good stuff. So thank you, everyone, for your patience as we get this back up to full speed.
Does anyone else have any late items? David, do you have anything else?
Now, Mr. Chairman, on the 911 support system, Joe, is it possible that a copy of this form or an amended form be sent out with the tax bill and water bill in the city? That way everybody gets one?
I'll look into that. I'll ask tomorrow. That's a great idea.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And just for the edification, it's already on the Disabilities webpage.
So I can send it directly to the tax folks and see if we can get that out for the next bill. Yeah,
sure. One other note, there is some new links already on there from the agencies that came last month. Family Cares is already linked on there, and there's a few other new links on there for state agencies that I had placed on there. Anybody else have any late items? Any residents' feedback? Okay. That will do it for our meeting tonight. One? Sure. Just push the button.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Co-Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, I was here last month about Ashley and Toscano Ave. Mr. DeCicco, you know the area very well. And I was kind of disheartened. Let me tell you why. The advocate had a write-up about the cars parking on sidewalks, about there was 6 streets, like Joe had said. But was my presentation worth any kind of value, how I explained myself, or didn't anybody get the picture of the problem that I have on my street, which is Toscano and Ashley Ave? I've got a picture here, so if you just want to, Joe, pass it around. That illustrates what the problem is where I'm living. That sidewalk is, to that retaining wall to the sidewalk is 21 inches. That's an illegal sidewalk. That's been there for close to 40 plus years.
Yep.
And the reason why I'm bringing it up now is because where the fact of 40 plus years, the flooding that we have down there is taking its toll on the sidewalk. And as you can see, the crack on the retaining wall. The retaining wall started to kick in because of the sidewalk, which is 21 inches. There's nothing holding that area together, and that's why my retaining wall is cracking. So I'm going to assume why nobody will touch that sidewalk, because they don't want to touch the retaining wall. If they were to repair that sidewalk, which to make it a legal sidewalk, they're going to have to tear up that whole street to make it 48 inches. I do believe the reason why they cut that sidewalk the way it was, when they put Green Tree Lane in, the Toscano and Ashley, it wasn't wide enough. But however, what they done, they cut it and let it be. I've got family members coming to my house. They can't get out of the car because of the sidewalk. They open up the car door and my elderly people, relatives come and they can't get out of the car. So I think that would justify, that picture would justify my argument about what the condition is. So on Commission on Disabilities, 40 plus years talking to the council members for situations that happened in Revere, all I got was lip service. And I can see where this brand-new commission is starting to get a head start. With the traffic commission, there's so much turmoil in the Revere Police Department that the chief is going, a lot of people are going. So with that, they're gonna table that situation, they're gonna table your situation with the illegal parking. So when they table, the months go by, years go by, and the same thing is happening all over again. So whether I didn't present myself the right way or nobody understood the severity of that sidewalk, I don't know what else to say.
So just for your information, so this is something that is going to require, this is something that the Community Development Department and Public Works and Engineering needs to develop a plan for. It's not really within the scope of the Commission on Disabilities. I can't speak to what happened in this city 30 or 40 years ago. I can tell you that, what this administration's been doing with all of our streets and sidewalks is doing a full professional, thorough evaluation of what steps need to be taken to repair them properly, to bring them into compliance, and also how much that would cost. And that's a process that's ongoing right now, and it's going to be, as long as we're here, reevaluated every year. But something like this, there are a lot of factors. I'm just looking at it, in addition to the retaining wall, what it would take to make this a correct sidewalk and to do it right and make sure everything's all done correctly. It's a pretty big project. It's not something that I imagine can be, done in a month. It's something that's going to require like a real plan. I'd be happy to, I think you have my contact information, but if you don't, we can talk after the meeting and, we can talk about this in more depth. But this is something that it's going to have to be like a full project by the engineering and community development departments to fix. It's not really within the scope of this commission.
And just to let you know, it was in our notes, so it is out there that there was a problem when you came in there. Even though it wasn't in the Advocate, it's public record that you had come up and talked on it, and it is in our monthly notes that you came up and has your address and your name with the situation.
That's reassuring. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
That's what I was waiting for.
So if you go to the Commission on Disabilities website and you look at the links and look at the meetings on the side and the meeting notes, you'll see that your item is on there that you came up and discussed about that issue.
Okay. Now, I was with Joe in the mayor's office quite a few times about the flooding, but that's irrelevant to the situation of the sidewalk that's happening now. My other problem was the fact where I don't understand, for 35, 40 years, every time people talk in the council members, it's lip service, lip service, lip service. So I can reassure you guys that if someone says they're going to table something, that's what's going to happen. They're going to table it until you forget about the problem. So my other question is, which I'm illiterate to the point of, I would assume a council on disability would supersede any other department in the city because people have disabilities. That sidewalk, I've watched women, they can't get a baby carriage, they walk out in the street. You can't get a wheelchair, they have to walk out in the street. And the cars coming down, you know the area, Joe, the cars coming down from Green Tree Lane, when the expressway bogs down, they use Green Tree Lane for an access road. They blow the stop signs. They take a right turn on Toscano Ave without knowing what's around the corner. To this day, I don't know why no one has been killed because of the area, the way it was developed. The planning board in the city of Revere, I can't say what I want to say because I'm not going to go into diversions on what's, but the issue is the sidewalk, my retaining wall. I'm a taxpayer for 40 plus years, and if that wall collapses, if they come after me, then that's a whole other story for another day. That's my point. So the 40 plus years of that wall, the way it is now, everything else is starting to collapse on that. So, and I still don't know why the disabilities have supersede any other commission in the city of Revere. Joe, what's your thoughts about that?
So I can tell you that every sidewalk that's been constructed since this administration is in office is constructed properly and ADA compliant. I can't speak to what happened for the previous 39 out of the 41 years. But I can also tell you that, just realistically and feasibly, the amount of sidewalks around the city that are not compliant is staggering, and it's something that's being addressed, but it's going to take 10 years of infrastructure repair and replacement to get everything up to snuff. So as far as saying that, a specific one is going to be done, within a month, I can't really say that for sure. I can tell you that every street and sidewalk is being evaluated by an independent, we can talk about this offline, it's not really for this venue, but there's an independent company being brought in to fully evaluate with a scale the condition of the pavement and all the streets and sidewalks, making sure that we're developing a priority plan so that over the course of 5 to 10 years, we can get all the ones that need to get redone. And if you look at the work that has been done, the city gets approximately like $1 million or so from the state each year and Chapter 90 funds to do road and sidewalk repairs. That's enough to do, 6 streets. And then in addition to that, we were able to find an additional funding source. The mayor requested $200,000 for additional sidewalk repairs out of city funds on top of what usually goes into street repairs. And if you look around the city, you're starting to see that happening just in the past week or so. You'll see contractors out there ripping up and replacing sidewalks. So just so you know, we have that see-click-fix database of service requests for sidewalks, and we had approximately like a 3-year backlog of sidewalk repair requests as of August of last year. And so the mayor asked the engineering team to go out and evaluate every single one of those service requests. We actually have the report. We're going to be working on trying to get it uploaded so that the public can see it, but it's like 550 pages long. They went out, took pictures of every request that came in, made a recommendation as to what action needed to be taken to make that safe and compliant and how much it would cost, and then put together a plan for, as much bang for the buck as we could get for $200,000. And that work just started. So if you look around, you'll see it starting to happen. There's a bunch of sidewalks getting ripped up and replaced, and that's going to continue. It's going to be a really dig into that backlog. But there's a lot. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. I think anyone that lives in this city knows that a lot of sidewalks and streets have a lot of work that need to be done to get them to where they need to be, just to be safe. So it's something that definitely is being worked on, and your concern is certainly noted. Oh, sure. Sorry about that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Is that it? Anyone else? Okay, this meeting is adjourned until Tuesday, June 13th at 6 p.m. Thank you. Have a good night.